Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Inspire Health podcast, also playing on UK Health Radio, the world's #1 health talk radio. And we have just finished our last series now of Life, Death, and Beyond Exploring Our Greater Reality. We are going to be starting fairly soon our newest series on Creating New Earth, a collaborative mission. It's going to be a fascinating series. I think we've already got about 20 guests lined up for this one from lots of different diverse areas of anywhere from teachers to medical doctors to innovation, all sorts of cool stuff we're going to be talking about. So make sure to go and check that out on inspirehealthpodcast.com. Today, though, I wanted to bring on a good friend of mine and a former patient of mine, James Cooke. And we've been chatting over the last while, and James has gone through a history of challenges with anxiety, depression, and this sort of whole area. And he's just really come out the other side of it and done extraordinarily well for himself. And I wanted to bring him on and we chat about this, and he wanted to share his story, just basically to have some real conversations around concerns that often so many people deal with and don't really know how to get out of it. And what I really admire about James is James really did all of the different pieces and has just really had a remarkable story on being able to go from, I think, the depths of anxiety, depression, and then coming right out of it and actually really stepping into his life fully. And I think in many ways recreating his life with the potential that was always there that he's been able to step into now. So James, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Jason. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I really appreciate you being able to jump on here with me and just have this conversation. I was talking to a guest a while back, and we were talking about the importance of just having real conversations. You know, it's so often I feel like we live in this world where there's like a bit of a veil between things, and it's like, you know, we have to fit into a certain look and certain conversations and talk about things in a certain way. And I feel like a lot of times the authenticity of conversations is not even there anymore. And you know, it's like even my wife and I will sometimes talk about parenting and even like the areas where we kind of screw things up and the successes and just like what it's really like to just be a parent living in this world and the challenges that we all come across. To me, anything around mental health has been a huge one. I know clinically I've seen literally almost every patient that I've talked to over the past few years, particularly anxiety, depression, focus issues, is just paramount. I know the stats will say about 1 in 4 people deal with these types of issues and these types of concerns, but I would say that's actually at the very small end. I think right now it's actually a part of almost everybody's life in some capacity just because of all of the challenges that have gone on over the past few years. Um, why don't I pass it back to you and maybe share a little bit about your story and then how we met, and then we'll go through some of the different things that we've done, because what I want people to get from this is there's a lot of stuff that can actually be done that can make dramatic changes. And you know, James' story could be a story for a lot of other people that just aren't aware of the different things to look at. So James, let me pass it over to you and maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and your story, and then we'll go from there.
For sure, yeah, I'd definitely be honored to be able to help as many people as I can with my story. I feel like the Batman in The Dark Knight Rises when he was put in the pit there and he's like injured and then he has to work his way and climb his way in. And I kind of feel like that's kind of where I've been. A little bit about me in the past. I was pursuing my CPA as a professional accountant, chartered professional accountant in Canada here. I was a financial analyst for the Trump Tower in downtown Toronto. So I had really a lot of experience in that field. And then I eventually, found I found someone who was doing really well on Instagram, selling a course that I ended up working for. And that experience really changed and gave me a vision, which I'll touch on later. I feel like that's a really important part to be able to get through that pit that you may find yourself in, is the importance of having a vision and knowing that is possible to be able to pull yourself out of. So I was given this vision and of ultimately making money online about 7 years ago. And then I ultimately quit the CPA and made the mistake of telling all my friends and family about my new vision, because they didn't experience these experiences I did. So obviously they weren't like realistic to most people. And I feel like feel like oversharing there kind of, put me in a place where I ultimately like broke my brain, and I ended up in the psych ward for a couple months, and it was a really not a great time. I was put on a lot of heavy medication, and I basically just slept in the hospital for a couple months. I eventually got out of the hospital. I was put in outpatient clinic, and I found myself on handfuls of antipsychotics and lithium, just like making me a zombie. And I really wasn't able to do much. I had to move back in my 30s with family because I couldn't support myself. I started collecting ODSP, which is disability payments here in Ontario. I was living off of like $1,100 a month. And it was just a really terrible time. Like I couldn't hold a job. Like I did apply to many places, and I did, get some bookkeeping jobs to try to get myself back in there. But with these medications, like I really wasn't able to get back to where I was mentally with my, like my stamina. And I really just basically just gave up on the idea of, having a normal life. Like I was really depressed. I was really, really down and out, and I really had no insight for a positive future. Like I just basically just completely gave up. I was just just doing the motions, right? And so at the time, yeah, I started to play video games. Like I play video games. I started to play World of Warcraft, and that's basically all I was able to do. And then my family was blessed enough to look out for me and try to find an alternative way of being able to deal with this, because clearly, being on the medication for the rest of my life was not feasible. So I was blessed to meet Jason, and we worked together. And I gotta be honest, in the beginning, like I really did not have high hopes. Like I did not have high hopes at all. But Jason helped me to, he got my blood work done and then put me on a specific vitamin routine that I've been on now for probably 3 years. And I got to admit, there are times when I was taking the vitamins, and, like you take vitamins, you don't feel anything right away. So you may fall off your routine a couple times. And but I stayed with it over a course of 2-3 years. It's been now 4 years I've been on these vitamins. And about a year and a half ago, I was actually able to, now I don't recommend this, obviously, everyone's different, but my story, I eventually, after about 2.5 years of being on these vitamins, I just decided to, and it was my decision to stop the medication. And about a week after stopping the medication, I was like, wow, like I had my mind back. Like I actually feel like myself again. Like this is amazing. So I didn't tell anybody probably for about a year that I was off these medications, but I should also mention that I gained probably like 60-70 pounds just from the medication alone. So I was about like sitting at about 260 pounds, I'd say, like really, really, really big for me. And when I stopped taking the medication, not only did I get my mind back, but I was able to completely drop all the weight. Like I went from about 260, I dropped down to about 183, like exactly 183. I wasn't exercising. I was fasting at the time. So I was only eating like dinner for a couple of years, but I was skin and bones, and I didn't change anything really in my day-to-day life. So really dropped all that weight. And then I would say, a few months of being off the medication, I was just scrolling on social media, and, I was attracted to, like, the algorithm was feeding me more of athletes that I was interested in, because I was an athlete prior in university about 10-15 years ago now. And then I just like, it just clicked in my head on June 6th of 2023. I know exactly the day. I was like, I'm gonna get my life back, and I'm gonna go get back in the gym, and I'm not gonna make any excuses anymore. I'm gonna eat until failure, and I'm gonna get back to where I was before. So I just made that decision, and no excuses. Like I did not miss a day. at all. I went 5 to 6 days a week in the gym for a year straight. I ate. In the beginning, I bulked so that I could get back my weight. I went from 183 up to about 220, 225. And then I decided to really focus on, getting proper sleep, getting the proper diet in, and really focusing on myself, and learning how to love myself and self-improvement, and really, like, falling in love with life again. And I really feel like all the medication, or not the medication, but the lack of medication, and the vitamins that I was taking, really allowed me to get to a place where I was no longer drowning in
Hmm.
depression, like the quicksand. Like, I felt like I was actually able now to go and live the life I was supposed to live. Like, I wasn't being held down by anything. Um, so yeah, I'm really grateful for the vitamins to be able to get me back to, like, the base level. And then from there, I was able to get back to myself and get into the gym. And now you could see, on my social media, hustle and health underscore on both TikTok and Instagram. You could see my 1 year transformation. It's pretty incredible. Not only in a physical way, but my mind is really sharp and back to where it was, and I'm truly grateful.
Yeah, you've had a you've had a pretty remarkable 1 year transformation in many regards. And we'll kind of backtrack here a little bit because I think there's some pieces I want to make sure that we explore a little bit.
For sure.
And yeah, when James had gone, when he had decided on his own accord to stop taking the medications, I don't think I even knew about that for I think it was probably close to a year, or 6 months to a year, I think, until you just one day said, because you'd been doing so well and everything was moving in a really positive direction. And then we actually talked about saying this might be a good time then to go back and talk with your doctor about actually starting to titrate your dose back down on your medications and see what they think about that. And you're like, well, actually, I've already done that myself, and that actually has been. And I remember like, oh wow, because and James did that on his own accord. But again, just so that people know, James has his own unique story, but that's something that I would recommend. Work with the primary care practitioner that you have, because for some people that can be really hard transition. So if you are able to titrate down, then work with your healthcare practitioner to help you titrate it down in a way that is safe and monitors. Part of what happens is when James came and saw me, what had first come across was the Walsh research approach to biochemistry imbalances that tie in with mental health. And I'll put a link there so you can check out that work. But the work that Dr. Walsh has been doing has been now for about 40 years almost. And he started that out with Dr. Carl Pfeiffer, who is an MD, PhD psychiatrist, and some really amazing work on looking at underlying nutritional imbalances and biochemical imbalances that set the stage up for troubles with different biochemistry. And so there's certain key things that we test. So when James is talking about supplements, what we basically assessed was to find out if there was specific biochemical imbalances, and these things tend to be epigenetic. It means they get passed down family trees. So often if you look through your family tree, if you're going to have some of these susceptibilities, then often you'll see it in the family tree. It's like, Uncle Bob had anxiety, or this person had ADHD, or this person maybe had an eating disorder or something. You usually see trends throughout the family tree, and they can skip generations, but you'll usually see that somewhere. So then when James saw us, we run through some specific testing. So we look at a number of different specific biochemical imbalances that can take place, and then they can be treated fairly effectively using targeted nutrition. And this is all based off of the research of the Walsh Institute that's been doing this for like about 40 years. So I'll break down some of the key ones that came up with you, James. So when I think about anything to tie with mental health, I usually think about it in different categories. So we think of it from biochemistry, because from that perspective, it's like if there's something that's going on there that's throwing somebody's biochemistry off, it's like you wouldn't even know. It's affecting the neurotransmitters that really regulate how you think, feel, and act. So it's like that's all you've known, because most of the time those have been there from day one. So it's like that's just a part of what's there in our personality. So a lot of times people would not even know anything different because that's just what's normal for them. So for me, it's like when you can find something there, if there is, and then start to correct it, you can let that person start to get control of their biochemistry again, and then they have all the right neurotransmitters to help them in their life feeling the way that they want to feel. Otherwise, I feel like there's just a rate limiting step. So we'll usually look at biochemistry. We usually look at things around diet, gut health, blood sugar regulation. Those things can play a big role. There's aspects around self-regulation and the nervous system that plays into stuff. And then there's this whole area of mind, body, spirit, and listening to the body and taking self-responsibility. And we're going to go into that part in just a little bit too, because that's something that James did really, really amazingly, where he really took control of his life once I think he was in charge of his biochemistry again. So two of the things that came up for James, I just want to explain this because these are things that people often don't hear about. And one of the things, and you can even look at, is called pyroluria. And pyrroles are a building block that we make that is a part of making red blood cells. Everybody makes them. Some people just have a susceptibility where they make too many of them. And if you make too many of them, they have a strong affinity to bind up zinc and B6, and they cause very low levels of zinc and B6. Why zinc and B6 are so important is because they are cofactors. This is why in general nutrients are really important. They're cofactors for the smooth running of different reactions. Some of them are bigger players than others. When it comes to mental health, there's literally a handful of really important nutrients that are major players. Zinc and B6 are two of those ones. And what happens when you have pyrroles, you suck out a lot of your zinc and B6 and end up with very low levels of it. Zinc and B6 are essential for the last step in activating the enzyme that helps you make serotonin, dopamine, and GABA. So if you have a pyrrole imbalance, what happens is you have a production issue. You can't make serotonin, dopamine, and GABA in the ways that you should be able to make. So even if you're taking lots of 5-HTP or tryptophan or some of these different things that we hear about, you won't be able to convert that over to making serotonin. So essentially what happens is people are living their life with low levels of these different neurotransmitters potentially, and that's going to have profound effects on their ability to regulate their nervous system, their ability to have proper sleep. It can affect immune system. It can affect skin troubles. It can cause moods to fluctuate dramatically, very poor stress control, all sorts of different things. And so one of the things that we checked with James was his pyro levels. And pyro levels, I think when we first checked them, I think they were, the highest I saw them with you was, I think, just about 41, I think 40.77. And the range should be between 0 and 10. That's where people should be. So James was basically running his life with over 4 times the amount of what would be at a healthy rate, at a healthy state for him, without ever knowing it. And it's one of those things where you just wouldn't know unless it was actually tested. And it's one of those things that can actually get treated really effectively, often with the right dose of vitamins, zinc, with zinc and B6 and some other key nutrients around stuff, often within about 8 weeks. You can really get a hold of it. And then you can monitor it periodically to check it. Last, I think we checked, your levels were down around 6, right smack where they should be. So that means that James ends up having much more control over his biochemistry and then can use that now into his life. It's almost like, I've used the analogy before. It's like if someone was totally anemic, if they had really low iron levels and they couldn't make red blood cells, it'd be like telling them, well, you need to get more motivated. You need to find a purpose in life. You need to start moving your body and exercise, and you need to start eating better and all these things. But your iron's so low that you just don't even have enough energy to get up and get out of bed in the morning. All of those things might be beneficial, but you can't even get into the frame of mind to be able to do that until you actually get your energy level back up. So I think of this the same way with any of these imbalances. It's like if they're there, there's a lot of things that you might be wanting to do, but it's hard to actually do it when you don't have the raw ingredients necessary to make it happen. So once we got that corrected, I found like that really made a big impact. And the other one that we won't get into lots of detail here with, but the other one that came up was methylation imbalances, and James tended to be on the low side, like the undermethylated side, which also can affect the reuptake of neurotransmitters. So it can cause low levels of serotonin and dopamine to sort of sit there. And we need those neurotransmitters to focus, to concentrate, to feel good in our life, to find seek a sense of purpose. These types of things are all essential with those neurotransmitters. So once that stuff started to get on track, then I just found like you just skyrocketed, and everybody's a little different. Some people still might require some medication with it. Other people find that they're able to work with the doctor and gradually go off of it. I think James found for the most part that he didn't require any of it anymore as he went along. And then we periodically recheck things to see if there's any changes and whatnot. But as far as I've seen, you've done really remarkably well with keeping on track with all that stuff.
Yeah, there was a point in time where I noticed that I was laughing uncontrollably to the point where my abs would seize up I'm not even kidding, every single day. And as soon as I realized that that was like a consistent, like not just like a fluke like type thing, it was like happening like every single day. I was like, that is 100% is the vitamins. And ever since I like put two and two together there, I've never missed a single day of my vitamins. And I encourage all my friends and family that I talk to either talk with Jason to get it figured out, or to take the vitamins that they're already on, like, because like really prioritize them, because it's like life changing for me, and I'm sure for the audience listening as well.
Yeah, I think if there's biochemical imbalances, if it's tested and it shows up, then it also fines tune what you need to take for you and for your specific conditions. So it sort of helps people. You don't just need to go out and buy vitamins. I mean, vitamins can be beneficial for a lot of things. A lot of them, I think, I do a lot more work around people taking them off of certain things than putting them on, because a lot of times what people are taking is not necessarily needed or prioritized for what they should be taking. So it's and even getting the right types of things for you, and then being able to follow up to see if it's actually working. I think that was what really I think supported you. So part of it is kind of doing that. You also made some big changes with after that. I think your diet and everything started to change. You made some profound differences with that. You started moving your body and working out. I mean, you really stepped into taking control of your life. And what I want to share for the second part of this is, so part of it is figuring out what are some of the underlying things that might be there that are getting in the way of you being able to really take control of some of these symptoms around anxiety, depression, or focus, or any of this stuff, getting that addressed. And then once that starts to get addressed, now I feel like you've got all the faculties back on check, where now you can actually step in and take responsibility for your life. This is the next piece that I think is really important. And this is what I think James has done really beautifully with, is he really took responsibility for his life and started to step into it and create it in the way that he wanted to. So maybe I'll pass it back over to you as far as once you started feeling better, when your energy started feeling better, when you started to feel more like yourself, like you said, that shadow that stops you from being able to even have a full laugh, that full belly laugh, which in itself is so therapeutic. When that stuff
Oh,
started coming back, how did you start to decide you wanted to move forward?
yeah. So for me, like when you talk about how, if someone is in this depressive state, you could very easily tell them, "Oh, get motivated, find a purpose in life," and all these things. Like, of course, like it's very easier said than done. But I feel like once I had my biochemical markers in check, all of those things just came naturally. Like I just had my zest for life again. And so I was an athlete before, so so I just got back into the routine that I was in prior to all of this happening, right? And so I just basically just became more of myself again. Like I got back into the gym, and that, like part of the diet aspect was like I didn't really care about life or myself or where I was going or anything like that. So I really just was starving myself, and I just said to everybody that I was fasting, but it was just because I just didn't care to nourish myself. But once I came off these meds and I had everything in check, then it was like, okay, well, why am I doing this to myself? Like I feel like I owe it to myself to, and this all just came naturally. So I just started to, genuinely care and love myself again. And that meant, I have to get enough nutrients to come in, and I have to eat properly, and I have to, working out. I know it's cliche. People say, oh, if you're depressed, like just get in the gym. But that actually really helped me. Like, it really helped me to really just, like, even the frustrations that I was experiencing in life, like not wanting to be where I was. And I just took out my frustrations in the gym, and it really helped to get me back, not only back into a routine, because I was going to the gym every day, right? That definitely helped. But also to, just the exercise that I did in the gym, like, just made me feel amazing. And so I became hooked to that. And then you start to see, results, because, like, you can see, like, my 1 year transformation is crazy. Like, but after a period of time, you start to see results in the mirror, and you're like, wow, like, it's actually working. Like, this is working. Like, and then you become, motivated and drawn to that vision that we talked about earlier, and realizing, like, okay, well, it's not impossible to achieve your goals, whatever they may be, but you do have to actively take steps towards it each day. You can't just have a, like, if you don't have a plan in place to achieve your goals, then a goal is just a dream, right? So it's actually taking those steps to living the life that you see for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely a part between, I think initially it's really important to kind of take the the handcuffs off the imagination, start to, like, envision, get excited about something. I think that's really important, but then you do have to take that. This is something we do with goal setting too. It's like, I'll start by getting excited about something. I want to write down, like, what is it that I'm wanting to move towards in this aspect of my life. And I think the tricky part is get really clear on it, get excited about it, and then let go of the attachment of how it's going to actually show up. I think that's an important part, so that we don't get sort of, like, hooked in and stressed around it. But then you have to kind of go back and go, okay, so for me to make that happen, what changes do I need to make in my own life, or even within my own comfort zones, to actually make that happen? And that's where I feel like the real gold is in sort of fine tuning our goals around stuff too. It's like, figure out what that big picture looks like, let go of the attachment to it, and then start asking yourself, what do I need to do differently, or how do I need to step out of my own comfort zones in order to make that really happen? And then you start to write down some of the action steps that you need to actually apply, right? And what were some of the ones for you that maybe stretched your comfort zone a little bit, but that you knew were important for you to start to move forward in the way that you did?
Sure. Yeah. So my vision, I worked with someone who's very successful entrepreneur on Instagram years ago. And so my vision was, like, okay, I want to make that a reality for myself. How can I do that? And so I started on TikTok. I was like, okay, I don't have any following. I don't have any experience on camera. I have really no clue what I'm doing. I'm passionate about all these skills that I picked up earlier in my 20s. And so what I did is I just, like, went outside my comfort zone, and I started to use social media not as just entertainment, but as a tool to actually create content to show people whatever you want to talk about, really. And for me, it was, I really like data and AI and analytics, and generally just, like, making money online. So I built up an audience over, about 6 months, up to about 70,000 followers. I had a few videos go viral. I had like thousands of people download my ebook, and I made tons of commissions. I would wake up and I had commissions in my email, and I was like, wow, this is, like, after about a month of posting on TikTok, I had all these results, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. I got to keep going. So I didn't compare myself to anyone other than who I was yesterday. And I aimed to only be 1% better each day. And the way that I did that is I started following people on TikTok that, like the Aaron Sogi, for example. He has his whole account is about teaching you how to make better videos and make better content, to get, like, the captions, so that, it changes like it changes color and all these different things that it takes to create content. And so I just decided to watch some of his videos and then try to implement it into the next video that I was going to create. And I held myself accountable, and I just kept making these videos to the point where I had millions of views and tons of followers, like pretty much like overnight. Basically, I had tens of thousands of followers overnight, it seems like. And then I started to really get back into the gym. So I kind of pulled off of TikTok, and I was more focused on the gym. And for me, like I use comedy to kind of put a cloak over all my trauma that I've been on. So as I was working out, I'm super passionate about working out. I really spent a lot of time in the gym, and I just really love being there. I feel like it's like my home away from home. And so there was people at the gym there that were making content about the gym. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, this is interesting. Like I know how to make content based on my experience with TikTok, but I've never made gym content before. So I was like, let me just like, and at the time I also wasn't on Instagram. I was only on TikTok, but the gym was only on Instagram and not on TikTok. So I was like, okay, like I'll show these guys like what I can create, and I'll post it on Instagram just for fun. So in between sets, I would be making these videos just to make myself laugh, not expecting or having any like real expectations of anything to come of this. And then, I was just making these videos just for fun and making myself laugh like I do every day now. And then eventually one video hit over 100,000 views, and then every video after that is over 100, 100, 100, 100, 120, 130. Like, and then I have one video that it's over 6 million now. I think it's at like 6.2 million. And in about in the last 30 days, I've reached over 5 million unique accounts. I'm now eligible for the Amazon affiliate influencer program, and I gained probably 6,000 followers in the last 30 days. My account is just completely blown up, and it's all just because I just am passionate about what I'm doing, and I'm just like living my own truth, and people just jive with that, and that's kind of where I'm at now. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is part of why I wanted you to share your story, because and it's for people out there. It doesn't mean you need to be on Instagram or TikTok or any of this sort of stuff, but it's like that was what James' passion was. He was, when I started to see him move in that direction, I could just see this huge spark jump out, and he just dived in with both feet and just, I mean, where I think transformation takes place is when people get that inspired action. That's the whole idea of this even podcast. The Inspire Health podcast is because when people get inspired and then they act from that place of inspiration, that's when we really change our lives. So for other people, it could be that they got inspired to garden and then share that in a certain way that they wanted to, if they feel like sharing it. But the idea is like, when you get inspired and then you act from that place, life changes really quickly. And sometimes we just need to be able to get back to that spark again, whatever it is, and then see where it takes us. And then I think we show up in the world in a way that we probably inherently know we can, but maybe just it was blanketed down for a long time. And so I think the key message for what James is sharing is just he really got excited and he knew what he wanted to do, and that fell for him in the world of sort of social media and everything. Whatever it is for you, that's what you would want to be able to follow. The idea is to be able to unlock that again so you can actually feel that spark of inspiration and then direct it in whichever way your life is going to direct it. So one other thing I wanted to touch on, James, you had mentioned to me before too, was community and the role that community play, and even a new community where you got to literally really like show up in the way that you wanted to without past influences and past scenarios and past experiences, and really show up in a new way. I'm wondering if you can share a little bit about that, because that also might be helpful for people.
Yeah, for sure. So the way that I did that was initially I had to figure out, okay, who do I want to be ultimately? Like who, like if I want to be an influencer or doing well on social media, for example, like who is that person, and then figure out what habits those that person is going to be doing on a daily basis. How do they act? How do they think? Like how do they live their life? And then you have all these habits, and then what I did is I implemented these habits into my life and my thinking and where I was. And with community, you know, people join to, like, for example, Toastmasters. People join Toastmasters because, from my understanding, is that they go to this group and they learn how to talk about certain things in a group that has no idea about your past at all. Like, so you can come into this community and you just like build a new identity for yourself up. And so for me, it wasn't the Toastmasters that I joined, but I'm a gamer. So for me, it was the World of Warcraft community within Discord. There's tens of thousands of people on these servers. And, you know, I came in there and I just, regardless of where I was in my life currently, I acted as though I was in the position that I ultimately wanted to be. So all these people online that have no idea about, you know, the situation that I'm in or the things that I've gone through or anything, they only know me based on how I'm acting as if I want to be. Because I was doing that, I was people were interacting with me based on like and treating me as if I was already this person that I wanted to be in my head. So you really get to, like, you know, live a life of, you know, already you're kind of like hacking it. So like you're already kind of getting feedback from this community that really doesn't know anything about you. It's basically like anonymous. That doesn't know anything about you, and they're giving you feedback based on this persona that you've created for yourself. So, you know, figuring out who you want to be, what habits they have, how do they think, and then creating that image for yourself in a community of people that don't know who you are or what you've been through or anything like that. It was extremely beneficial for me because over like the course of, I'd say, a year and a half of 2 years, like mentally, I was a completely different person because of all of the successes that you build up in these communities. And you, like, as you know, share your, you know, maybe the different talents that you have, or, you know, for me, it was like Excel and data and like analytics. And so like I would help the group that I was with, you know, really like on an analytical point of view. And like I really like do some kind of like pro bono like work for them that I have done in the past just for fun. And then you know, like you start to build up these successes, like these you know, like the things that you do that to help other people. It starts to build your confidence up. And then over time, like you keep doing these things, and over time you build up your confidence, and that spills out into the rest of your life. Like that really changes who you are internally, and then from there you're able to kind of blossom into whoever you want to be in life, you know. And that's what I've done, and it's worked really well for me. And the more in tune I feel like I've come with who I am, and, you know, being more active and loving myself, I kind of pulled away from the video games and more into my own life. You know, like I used to use the video games as like an escape from my life. But then I built up enough confidence within the video game and the community to be able to build up my real life and become who I wanted to be. And so I really I didn't get sucked into, you know, ignoring what's happening in real life and only focusing on the community and this virtual world of gaming. But I leveraged what I was doing in the gaming world to ultimately better who I was and where I was in real life. And I kind of just juggled it all to get to where I'm at now. Yeah.
Yeah, this is where I think that's really fascinating too, because I mean, generally my general feeling is like I'm not a fan of a lot of gaming, other than I used to play games, but I didn't think that it was very beneficial for people. But what I think is important is it's like everybody is unique and everybody is going to pick different things from different areas of their life. So what I love about what James did is James literally used it as like a practice ground. I mean, enjoyed it and was in that world for a period of time around stuff, but then had found the way to take that and then actually just put it into his reality at this point, and then and actually, use it as like a training ground almost, right? And
Yeah.
I think that's really fascinating. So it's like for me even too, it's like, and I try to catch myself too whenever I've got judgments on what I think is good, what I think is bad, right or wrong. It's like ultimately we don't really know. It's like the proof is in the pudding. It's like if it's working for you and it is improving your life, then use it. I always kind of think it's like, how do things make me feel and what is my life showing me? To me, that's a good indication of whether I am on a track that's beneficial or not. And then we just be honest enough to ask ourselves those questions and check in periodically. So from that perspective, I think that was a really beneficial thing for James. And James, in closing here, do you have any final words for people that have been struggling with anxiety or depression or focus issues or whatever it might be, any kind of mental health challenges, particularly I think over the past few years? Any words of advice for them or words of support?
I would say just don't lose hope. That's the number one thing is no matter how no matter where you are right now. I know that there are a lot of circumstances that just you may find yourself in that are just really not ideal. But you have to stay positive, and just like a glade skiing, right? If a glader, like they go down the hill, and glade skiing is skiing down the back of a hill between trees, right? And so obviously, if you're at rock bottom, there's going to be nothing but what it seems to be nothing but negative circumstances and things that are happening in your life. And if you focus on those, just like a skier going down this hill, the negative things could be the trees, right? And in order to get to the bottom of the hill, obviously you want to avoid all the trees or the negative things that may be popping up in your life. But if you focus only on the negative, then you're going to run right into it, like that. You're going to run right into the tree. But if you want to get around those trees to get to the bottom of the hill, you have to focus on the path. And if you focus on the path or the positives in life, then you're able to navigate around and these negative things in your life or the trees and be able to get to where you're going. So I know it can be very challenging, easier said than done. I know, believe me. But try your best to not dwell on and focus and make your whole mindset only focus on the negatives in life, because it'll only attract more of that into your life. Like I'm not discrediting what you're going through by any means, but try your very best to focus on the positives. Like for example, like if you get up in the morning and it's pouring rain and you got to walk to work, like I know that you're going to be like, oh, great, this is going to be a terrible day, right? But if you think about it, like just change your perspective on it and be like, okay, yeah, maybe I'm going to get wet, but now there's an opportunity for the trees and the grass to grow and the plants to grow and all this stuff. So it's really about perspective and framing your mind to really see the silver lining in the situations that you may find yourself in, and really try to focus on the path and not the trees.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. I remember even speaking with my wife, who a long time back had gone through a pretty big bout of depression for a period of time, and she was even trying to take that advice into her life too, on trying to focus on the positive. And I mean, positive thinking can kind of be a mixed match of stuff. Sometimes I think people focus on positive but feel crappy all the time and don't actually acknowledge what's actually in front of them. So we need to still be aware of what's actually going on and not kind of just, sprinkle perfume on, on a dung pile kind of thing. It's like we have to sometimes deal with the stuff that's there, which is making it feel. But I think what she found too was that when we get caught in these traps, it's then we're naturally by default focusing on all of the crappy stuff that's always there. And what James is kind of saying, if you kind of get focused more on the path, look for the other stuff, because there's always the other side of it somewhere. She found she had almost nothing. She had a lot of stuff at the time. So she was like, I don't even know what to look at that would be positive. And it came back to just basics. She started where she'd feel the sun on her face for a little bit and just be appreciative of that. She'd be appreciative for going for a walk in the park. Really basic stuff, but it does, if you can start to retrain the brain, then we do change those default settings. Now, the other part of that is if you're stuck in a loop, it can be because there can be biochemical pieces, there can be food pieces, there can be all of these other physiological pieces that can be kind of hijacking your chemistry and causing you to stay in loops too. And if that's the case, sometimes that stuff needs to be assessed, figured out so that you can get out of those loops and then actually step into what James is even talking about. It's kind of a couple different pieces that tie into that. So from that perspective, I'll put some links back to the Walsh Institute too, so you guys can check that out. And if that appeals to you, even check for a Walsh trained physician that can work with you on that as well. It's not something I think you should do directly on your own without guidance and supervision and finding out what's actually there for you. Everybody's got their own unique biochemistry and their own unique challenges. James, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story. I think I think you're absolutely inspirational, and I love the transition that you've taken over the past years that I've known you, and especially over the past year, where I mean, you really stepped into yourself in a whole different way, and I hope that other people get inspired by your story.
Thank you, Jason. I really couldn't have done it without you, honestly, and I am truly and forever grateful.
My pleasure, James. James, where can people learn a little bit more about you if they want to check out? Because you can go and watch his story and see the transformation he's taken place, which even just with his physical body, but which has been pretty amazing. But where can people learn more about your work?
Yeah, you can find me at hustleandhealth_ on Instagram. That's mainly where I'm focused on right now, but I do plan on getting back onto TikTok. It's the same username on TikTok as well. But yeah, I'm really focusing more on gym content and really getting fit because I'm absolutely passionate about that. And yeah.
Awesome. We'll put those links in the show notes. And thanks, everybody. Please make sure to like, subscribe, share this content. That is the best way for us to be able to get this out to more people that need to hear it. So thank you so much, James. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Take care.